Let me start with something that's going to make a lot of you uncomfortable. The reason most relationships fail isn't because people chose the wrong person. It's because they refuse to hear the truth about themselves. I've spent the last decade watching marriages fall apart and watching marriages thrive. And I'm going to tell you something right now, music that nobody wants to admit. The couples who make it aren't the ones who have the most passion, or the best chemistry, or the most compatibility. They're the ones willing to hear brutally honest truths that make them squirm. Today, I'm going to share relationship advice that's hard to hear, really hard. The kind of advice that makes you want to close this video and go back to scrolling. But if you can actually listen to what I'm about to say, music, and more importantly, if you can apply it, you might just save your relationship, or you might realize you're in the wrong one. Either way, you'll know the truth. Let's begin. First truth, and this is the one that hits hardest. Your partner is not responsible for your happiness. Read that again. Your partner is not responsible for your happiness. I know this goes against everything you've been taught. Every romantic movie, every love song, every fairy tale tells you that finding the right person will complete you, will make you happy, will fill the void inside you. It's a music lie, and it's a lie that destroys more relationships than infidelity. Here's what actually happens. You enter a relationship feeling incomplete. You think this person will fix you for a while. The newness and excitement mask your internal issues, but eventually the high fades and you're left with yourself again. Except now, you blame your partner for not making you happy anymore. You think music, if they just did this differently, or if they were more like they used to be, or if they understood me better. But the problem was never them. Music, it was always you expecting them to do something they were never capable of doing, making you whole. I watched my friend David destroy a perfectly good marriage because of this. His wife, Sarah, was amazing, supportive, loving, committed. But David was miserable at his job, felt unfulfilled in his career, had dreams he never pursued. And slowly, unconsciously, he started blaming Sarah for his unhappiness. We never do anything fun anymore. You don't support my ambitions. I feel trapped. Sarah tried everything, planned music trips, encouraged his hobbies, went to therapy with him. Nothing worked. Because the real issue wasn't Sarah. It was David's unwillingness to take responsibility for his own life. They divorced. David met someone new, and guess what? 2 years later, he's having the same complaints about the new relationship because the problem followed him. Here's the brutal truth. If you're not happy single, you won't be happy in a relationship. A relationship can add to your happiness. It can multiply joy that's already there. But it cannot create happiness from nothing. That's your job. If you're waiting for your partner to make you happy, you're placing an impossible burden on them, and eventually they'll collapse under that weight. Second truth, the problems you're ignoring will not go away on their own. Every single couple that ends up in my office for counseling has one thing in common. They music waited too long to address the real issues. They saw the red flags early, they felt the disconnection starting, they noticed the resentment building, and they told themselves it would get better on its own. It never does. Problems in relationships are like cracks in a foundation. Small at first, easy to fix early, but if you ignore them, they spread, they deepen, and eventually the entire structure collapses. I'm talking about the small things you're dismissing right now. The way they speak to you when they're frustrated. The fact that you haven't had a meaningful conversation in weeks. The sex life that's been declining for months. The feeling that you're roommates instead of partners. You tell yourself, we're just going through a busy season, or things will get better when the stress passes, or it's not that bad. But deep down, you know something's wrong, and every day you pretend it's fine is a day you're letting the problem grow bigger. Here's what happens in most relationships. The first time you notice a problem, it's a whisper, easy to address. A simple conversation could solve it, but you don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to seem needy or demanding, so you ignore it. The second time, it's a normal speaking voice. Still manageable, but it takes more effort. You'd need to have an uncomfortable conversation, set a boundary, express a need, but you're scared of conflict, so you stay quiet. The third time, it's a shout. Now it's become a pattern. You're frustrated. They're defensive. The conversation you should have had months ago now feels impossible because there's so much built up resentment. And if you still don't address it, Eventually, it becomes a scream. And that's usually when people show up for therapy. When the problem is so loud, it's destroying everything. But by then, it's often too late. The resentment is too deep. The trust is too broken. The distance is too wide. Music? Here's the hard truth. The conversation you're avoiding right now, that's the one you need to have today. Not when things get worse. Not when you're finally ready. Now, music, because waiting doesn't make hard conversations easier, it makes them impossible. Third truth, love is not enough. I know that sounds cynical, but it's not. Music. It's realistic. Love is essential, but it's not sufficient. You can love someone deeply and still be completely wrong for each other. You can have genuine affection and still create a toxic dynamic together. You can care about someone with your whole heart and still need to walk away, music, because relationships require more than love. They require compatibility, shared values, music, similar life goals, mutual respect, effective communication, willingness to grow, emotional maturity, financial responsibility, sexual compatibility, and the ability to handle conflict constructively. I've seen couples who love each other tremendously but want completely different lives. One wants kids, the other doesn't. One wants to live in the city, the other needs the countryside. One, music, values financial security above all else. The other wants to take risks and music travel. And they think love will bridge that gap. It won't. They think if they love each other enough, they can compromise on fundamental values. They can't. These aren't small preferences, these are core needs. And when you compromise on core needs, you create resentment. Slow, quiet, deadly resentment that eventually kills the love you thought would conquer everything. Music. I watched this happen with my cousin Emma. She fell in love with a guy named Chris. Genuinely in love. But Emma wanted marriage and children. Chris was clear from the beginning that he didn't want either. Emma thought he'll change his mind. Love changes people. 5 years later, music Chris still didn't want marriage or kids. Emma was pushing 40. Her window for having children was closing, and she was filled with resentment. She resented Chris for not wanting what she wanted. Music. He resented her for pressuring him to change. The love was still there, but it was buried under years of fundamental incompatibility. They finally broke up. It was devastating. But you know what Emma told me a year later? I should have believed him the first time he told me who he was. Here's the truth. Love doesn't conquer all. Love conquers a lot, but it doesn't conquer fundamental incompatibility. If you're hoping love will change the other person or make massive differences, disappear, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. Fourth truth, you're probably the problem in at least half your conflicts. This is the one that makes people defensive immediately. No, you don't understand. My partner is the one who stop. I'm not saying your partner is perfect. I'm not saying they don't contribute to problems. But if you genuinely believe you're right in every argument, if you consistently see yourself as the victim, music, if you rarely apologize or take responsibility, you're lying to yourself. And that lie is music destroying your relationship. Here's how I know. Every couple that comes to therapy tells the same story. Both people describe the same fights, but each person is convinced they're the reasonable one. Each person believes they're trying harder. Each person thinks, if only the other would change, everything music would be fine. They can't both be right. In reality, most relationship problems are co-created. You both contribute. You both music have patterns that trigger each other. You both have wounds from the past that show up in the present. You both have blind spots about your own behavior. But admitting music, that requires humility. It requires looking at your own contribution instead of focusing on theirs. Music. And most people aren't willing to do that. They'd rather be right than be happy. I used to be like this with my wife. Every argument I had a list of reasons why I was justified, why my position made sense, why she was being unreasonable. I could build an airtight case for why I was right. And I did every single time. You know what that got me? Being right and being alone. Because my wife didn't want to live with someone who needed to win every argument. She wanted a partner who could admit when they were wrong, who could say, you know what? Music, I didn't think about it that way. I'm sorry. It took me years to learn that lesson. But here's what changed everything. Music. I started asking myself one question after every conflict. What's my contribution to this problem? Not who's right. Music. Not who started it. Just what's my part? And every single time, if I was honest, I could find something. Maybe I didn't communicate clearly. Maybe I was passive aggressive instead of direct. Maybe I brought up an issue at a terrible time. Maybe I was projecting my own insecurities onto her behavior. Maybe I dismissed her feelings because I was defensive. Once I started owning my part, everything shifted. Our conflicts became shorter, less intense, more productive, because when one person takes responsibility, it gives the other person permission to do the same. Music. Here's your assignment. The next time you have a conflict, force yourself to identify your contribution before you defend yourself. Not after, before. It will change everything. Fifth truth. Your partner cannot read your mind. This seems obvious, but apparently it's not. Because the number one complaint I hear in relationships is this: they should music just know. They should know you're upset. They should know you need affection. They should know you wanted them to handle that differently. They should know what you meant when you said that thing in that tone. They should just know. No, they shouldn't, because they're not psychic. They don't have access to your internal dialogue. They can't see your expectations if you never voiced them. They can't meet needs music you never expressed. Here's what happens. You have an expectation. You don't communicate it clearly. Music. Your partner doesn't meet it because they don't know about it. You get hurt or frustrated because they should have known. You build resentment. Your partner is confused because, from their perspective, they didn't do anything wrong, and the cycle continues. Let me give you a concrete example. Sarah expects her husband Tom to plan something special for her birthday. She drops vague hints. My birthday's coming up. I wonder what we'll do this year. Tom, who is not a mind reader, thinks they'll probably go to dinner like they usually do. Sarah's birthday comes. Tom suggests dinner. Sarah is devastated and angry. You never put effort into my birthday. You don't care about making me feel special. Tom is blindsided. You never told me you wanted something different. Music? How was I supposed to know? Here's the hard truth. Sarah set Tom up to fail. She had a specific expectation, didn't communicate it clearly, and then blamed him when he didn't meet it. Music. This is unfair, and it's incredibly common. If you want something, say it directly, clearly, without hints or codes or expecting them to figure it out. I would really love if we could do something special for my birthday this year. Music may be a weekend trip or a surprise date. It would make me feel valued. See how easy that is. But people don't do it because they think if I have to ask, it doesn't count. They should want to do it on their own. That's a trap. That's you setting up a test they don't know they're taking. And when they fail, you get to feel righteous in your disappointment. Stop it. Start communicating. Your relationship will transform. Sixth truth. Passion fades, but partnership is a choice. Every relationship starts with intense chemistry. Butterflies. Can't keep your hands off each other. Constant texting. Late night conversations. You think this is it. This is what love feels like. This will last forever. It won't. Not that version of it anyway. The neurochemicals that create that initial rush, dopamine and oxytocin and all the rest, they level out after 18 months to 3 years. This is biological. It's not a sign that you chose the wrong person. It's not a sign that the love is gone. It's just chemistry becoming baseline. And this is where most modern relationships fail. Because when the passion fades, people panic. They think something's wrong. They think they've fallen out of love. They think maybe they were never compatible. And they either leave to find that feeling again with someone new, or they stay and quietly resent their partner for not making them feel that way anymore. But here's what successful long-term couples understand. Passion fades, but partnership is built. Music? The initial chemistry gets you together, but it's the choice to build something together that keeps you together. It's the decision to keep choosing each other, even when it's not exciting. It's the commitment to creating a life together that matters more than the feeling. My grandparents were married for 57 years before my grandfather passed. I asked my grandmother once, "How did you make it work for so long?" You know what she said? "I didn't always. feel in love with him. There were years that felt more like friendship than romance. There were times I was angry at him, times I was bored, times I wondered what else my life could have been. Music. But I never stopped choosing him. And eventually the feelings came back deeper than before because they were rooted in history and commitment, not just chemistry. That's the truth nobody wants to hear. The fire doesn't stay lit on its own. You have to tend it intentionally with effort by creating novelty, prioritizing intimacy, having adventures together, maintaining individual growth, showing appreciation, being present. This isn't less romantic than the initial passion. It's more romantic because it's chosen. Anyone can ride the high of new relationship energy. It takes real love to build something lasting when the high is gone. Seventh truth. Most of what you argue about isn't what you're actually arguing about. On the surface, you're fighting about the dishes, about whose turn it is, about whether they loaded the dishwasher correctly. But you're not actually fighting about dishes. You're fighting about respect, about feeling valued, about whether your contributions are seen. On the surface, you're fighting about sex, about frequency or initiation, or how it happens. But you're not actually fighting about sex. You're fighting about intimacy, connection, whether you feel desired, whether you feel safe, being vulnerable. On the surface, you're fighting about money, about a purchase they made, or a bill that's late. But you're not actually fighting about money. You're fighting about security, control, whose priorities matter, music, whether you can trust each other. Here's what I've learned. Beneath every petty argument is an unmet need. Beneath every recurring fight is a deeper issue you haven't named. And until you identify the real issue, you'll keep having the same fight. Forever. You'll just change the details. I watched a couple fight for 30 minutes about whether to get takeout or cook dinner. Music. It was ridiculous. The intensity didn't match the topic. So I stopped them and asked, "What's this actually about?" The wife said, "It's about the fact that I plan everything. I make every decision about meals and groceries and cooking, and I'm exhausted. And instead of taking initiative, he just asked me what we should do. Even about this, I don't want to decide. I want him to decide for once." There it was the real issue. It wasn't about takeout. It was about mental load, about partnership, about feeling alone in running the household. Once they addressed the actual issue, the fight about dinner dissolved. Here's what you need to do. Next time you find yourself in a stupid argument about something small, pause. Ask yourself, what's the need beneath this? What am I actually upset about? Name it and address that instead. Your fights will become shorter and actually productive. Eighth truth, you will hurt each other, and that's okay. This might be the most important truth on this list. In any intimate relationship, you will hurt each other. Not because you're bad people, not because you're incompatible, but because you're human. You'll say something thoughtless. You'll be selfish sometimes. You'll let them down. You'll misunderstand them. You'll be unavailable when they need you. You'll trigger their wounds. They'll trigger yours. This is inevitable. The question isn't whether you'll hurt each other. The question is, what do you do when it happens? Do you defend and justify, or do you acknowledge and apologize? Do you keep score and hold grudges, or do you forgive and move forward? Do you weaponize their vulnerability against them later, or do you protect what they've shared with you? The couples who make it aren't the ones who never hurt each other. They're the ones who repair quickly and completely. Music. They're the ones who can say, "I messed up. I hurt you. I'm sorry. How can I make this right?" and mean it. They're the ones who can hear an apology and actually forgive music instead of bringing it up in every future argument. I know a couple married 30 years who taught me this. I asked them their secret. The husband said, "We have a 24-hour rule. If one of us hurts the other, we address it within 24 hours. We don't let it fester. We don't avoid it. And we don't punish each other after it's resolved." The wife added, "And we apologize without the word. But not, 'I'm sorry, but you just,' 'I'm sorry, full stop.'" That's it. That's the difference between relationships that survive hurt and relationships that don't. The ability to repair. If you can master repair, you can survive almost anything. Ninth truth, and this is crucial, the relationship you have is the relationship you're creating right now. Music, not the one you had 2 years ago when things were good, not the one you hope to have someday when things change. the one you're creating today with your actions and choices and words. If you're distant and distracted, that's the relationship you're building. If you're critical and resentful, music, that's the relationship you're building. If you're avoidant and passive aggressive, that's the relationship you're building. You don't get to blame your partner for the state of your relationship while contributing to that state every single day. You want more intimacy, be more intimate. You want better communication, communicate music better. You want more appreciation, show more appreciation. You want them to be more present yourself. Stop waiting for them to change first. Stop keeping score. Stop withholding your best self until they deserve it. Be the partner you want them to be and watch what happens. Most of the time, relationships are stuck because both people are waiting for the other to make the first move. Both people are thinking, I'll try harder. When they try harder, nobody moves. The relationship stays frozen. Be the one who moves first, not once, consistently. Give what you want to receive, not because you're guaranteed to get it back, but because that's the relationship you want to build. And if you give your best consistently and get nothing back, music, at least you'll know. You'll know you tried everything and you'll be able to leave with no regrets. Final truth, some relationships need to end, and that's not failure. This is the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. Sometimes staying is causing more damage than leaving would. Sometimes you've both grown in different directions, and forcing it to work is just prolonging the inevitable. And recognizing that doesn't make you a quitter. Music, it makes you honest. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some relationships are meant to teach you something, help you grow, show you what you need, and then end. That's okay. Music. What's not okay is staying in something that's hurting both of you because you're afraid of being alone or starting over, or admitting it didn't work. What's not okay is sacrificing years of your life to a relationship that stopped serving either of you a long time ago. I'm not saying give up at the first sign of trouble. Music. I'm not saying run when things get hard. But I am saying if you've tried everything, if you've been in therapy, if you've had honest conversations, if you've given it real effort and it's still not working, it might be time to let go. And that's not failure. That's courage. The courage to admit that love isn't always enough. The courage to choose your well being over comfort. The courage to trust that there's something better waiting, even if you can't see it yet. Some of the best decisions I've ever witnessed were people finally leaving relationships that were killing their spirit. And some of the worst decisions were people staying in relationships they'd outgrown because they were too afraid to leave. Know the difference. Have the courage to act on it? So, there you have it. Brutally honest relationship advice that's hard to hear. If you made it this far, you're already ahead of most people because most people don't want the truth. They want validation. They want to be told they're right and their partner is wrong. They want simple fixes that don't require real change, but you're still here, which means you actually want to do the work. You actually want your relationship to survive and thrive. So, here's what I want you to do. Pick one truth from this video, just one. The one that hit hardest, the one that made you most uncomfortable. That's the one you need to work on. Music, don't try to fix everything at once. Just focus on that one truth. Apply it, live it, see what changes. Music, and if your relationship is worth saving, this will be the beginning of something better. If it's not, this will give you the clarity to know that too. Either to know that too. Either music, way, you win because you'll finally know you win, because you'll finally know the truth. And the truth, however truth. If it's not, this will give you brutal is always better than the comfortable lie.